Boom. We're doing it. It's happening. We're going live. Let me just do a little Instagram blast real quick so everybody knows we're doing this. Guys, thank you for joining for the fourth pwnisher VFX live stream. We're doing it big. We're going to make something cool today. We're going to figure out exactly what we're doing in a second here. Once I blast it out on Instagram. All right. We are live. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. It's time. It's time to do it. It's time. All right. You know, I should have handled all this stuff beforehand, right? I should have IG'd it out beforehand. I am live. VFX stream, let's go. All right. You know, this is just taking a minute here. Let's just hop in. All right, guys. So we're doing it. We're going to figure out what we want to do. So last week, I made an image that you guys had probably already seen. And it is, let's see. It's of this like tree, this Zen garden, inside of this concrete little area, you know, very modern, very sleek, right? And I was inspired by a little short film that my buddy Ethan showed me, and it's called The Third and the Seventh. And I'll show you guys what that is right now. So, The Third and the Seventh is an amazing little short film here. Look at this. This is so nice. So basically, this guy, I think he uses 3ds Max, and he just spent like, who knows how long, probably a good while. This short is like, yeah, nearly 13 minutes long, and he created all these amazing scenes and shot it in a way that is very like, it's very filmic. You know, he's actually got the film fades going, and this stuff looks near photoreal. His lighting is incredible. Oh man, my little cat Gilbert, he's crawling all over the keyboard here. Hey bud. So yeah, this guy is like going to town here with these lens flares, and he's got some film grain going. He's got the film fade going, which is different from a normal fade. A film fade is when basically the shadows dip out first, then the midtones, and the highlights are the last things to leave. And same for when you fade in, the first thing you'll see is highlights and then midtones and shadows, and you might see it here. You might do a little thing here. But yeah, you see that right here, and look at the fade in. See how you get the highlights first and then everything else kind of rolls in. So his cinematography throughout all of this is just incredible. I'll skip around to the middle. And see this look, this like concrete interior look. It's kind of what I was going for with the tree thing. So this was the inspiration, right? This is so beautiful. If you guys have a chance, look up The Third and the Seventh and watch this whole thing. It's beautiful. So we got the Discord going. If you guys hadn't signed up for the Discord yet, please do that. It's a place where all of us can get together and communicate and chat about 3D stuff, visual effects, anything that you guys want to learn. We can talk about it there, and I'll do it here. I have heard you guys. I know that you want substance designer tutorials. I know that you want like how to incorporate like your 3D objects into your live action plates that you've shot, right? So we'll definitely do those. Today, however, I'm going to do this, Zen Garden concrete thing. We'll do another one of those because I really want to get that down. But yeah, I got the Discord link down below in the description of this video. I also have a playlist of all the ambient music and chill music that I listen to when I do VFX, and honestly when I'm just doing anything, because it's half the music I listen to anyway. But yeah, that playlist, that Spotify playlist, is in the description for this stream right now, so you guys can go there, turn it on. I can't play it because if I want to monetize these things, I can't have music going on in these streams. But go there yourself, turn on, just shuffle play all those jams there, and I'll be adding more to that playlist as we go and as I discover more cool ambient music. But let's see, how are you guys doing? Everyone is chilling. Everyone says hello to Gilbert. He appreciates you. He's down there. He knocked my pen tablet down onto the ground. Hello. Kua asks why I have two versions of After Effects. That's because one version runs a plugin called Real Steady, and it's like a camera stabilization plugin that only runs for like the oldest version of After Effects. So that's why I have two After Effects. Let's see, what's the thing around my neck? These are bone phones. These are awesome. They're like bone conduction headphones that vibrate. You don't put them in your ear. You put them, kind of right in this area here. And it, vibrates a little bit. And, yeah, you can listen to some cool music. And I think I'll put on that Spotify playlist. All right, I'm in. Sweet. Yeah, the cool thing about these is you can hear, obviously, because your ears aren't plugged. And, you can run with these. You can hike with these. They're the best. Love them so much. Michael asks, is it good to get started into the 3D world with Blender, or should I get something else? Dude, 100%. Blender is the best. I personally have never used it, but it's the best because it's free, and I've seen what you can do with Blender, and my goodness, it's crazy. Just look up Ian Hubert or Peter France and these guys, and also Blender Guru. These guys are the best. They are like prodigies when it comes to Blender, so don't be discouraged. Just because it's a free program doesn't mean it's no good, guys. Melanie, I don't have the almonds today. It's never too late. They're just over there. But I do have my coffee, so my decaf coffee. So I'll be good to go. What else, guys? What else you got going on? Is everybody doing VFX during the week? You guys working on your craft during the week? Spending time? Working on your, growing your value? Working on yourself? What do we got going on here? Muskrat Mike. We got, what do we have going on here? Actually, let me open up my old project file for this tree. We're going to make a cool Zen garden deal. Let's do open recent. Yeah, so once the scene loads, I will render it, and I'll give you guys a quick overview of this like interior Zen garden that I did last week. Break it down really quick. It's very simple, actually. Most of the time went into figuring out my composition and building the interior space, just because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was searching, and that'll kind of be a similar situation here. I have an idea, we want to do an interior Zen space. Do I think I'm better than Ren at VFX? No. Ren is probably the best compositor I know. He's always teaching me different tips and tricks on how to better composite my 3D or even 2D stuff into my footage. Ren is incredible. He's the one who got me into Octane, and Octane is what you're seeing here, this little viewing window. So Ren got me into Octane. Ren was the texture master. He's been recently doing a lot of his VFX artist explains the size of the universe. or the scale of the universe, or like how big are atoms or how small are atoms. He's doing these kind of videos, so he's been putting more of his time points into that. And recently he's been building a drone that he's attached a Nerf gun to, basically, to fire Nerf darts. It's crazy. That episode is coming out on Corridor Crew in the next couple weeks. All right, guys. What is my specialty in 3D or modeling or VFX? I really, really love texturing. It's just very, very fun for me. I love modeling as well. And I do love compositing. I really love the whole process. And that's the best part about working at Corridor, is I get to do everything in the process. I wouldn't want to just do one thing. I like everything. And because, I'll get bored doing one thing forever. I have to mix it up. I need contrast in life. I think, which is why I like ambient music so much, because the day-to-day is just like non-stop, and the ambient music is a good chance to chill out. Trevor, I'm running a GTX 1070, just one of them. I would like to upgrade very soon and get a second 1080 perhaps. It's probably pretty cheap at this point, right? You can run two of them. But let's take a look at the scene, this viewing window. Let's just, let's see here. Let's bring our scene down to like something real small. And you guys can get an idea here of like what this is. You saw the picture, right? So I can pause the viewer. And let's go into here and hop out of camera view. And this is the setup for the scene. So I have like a roof here. If we go into this building. Come on. There we go. So you got your tree. I'm using a plugin called Forester, and it's really cool because you can swap these trees out for basically any tree you want, right? So you can switch it out for a giant beech tree like this, which could be cool, or a barberry tree, which looks pretty Japanese actually. I might do that for this for today's image. We got palm trees, that's just up and out of there. And for the lighting setup, you guys can see down here, I have a couple like holes in the roof to allow some natural light into. So I have these like little these slits right here where light pours down into the room from. And I'm using a sunlight, an Octane daylight system, and that's bringing your sun down into here. I also have an HDRI image that is projected around the whole scene that determines the color of the light and the shape of the light and everything a little bit. And I'll give you guys some examples on what the difference between that and the sunlight is. And then I have right here an area light, which is basically just like a giant light panel that is boosting a little bit of this height of the lights here down onto this tree. And it took me so long just to shape the light in this. That was the biggest part, was getting the lighting right. So it's a constant play between your, modeling this room here, because the shape of the room determines the best camera angle you'd want, and the camera angle determines I guess the lighting too, right? The lighting determines the camera angle a little bit as well. So I was trying to make it, work and make it aesthetic on all angles there. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing I didn't like about this image was it felt a little empty on this right side here, and it just felt the framing. I'm a big fan of symmetry and center frame stuff, so maybe today we'll do more of a symmetrical rendering. So God rays are basically volumetric light, and you could do that. Let's say make a new scene here. We'll render this to our viewer down here, right? So if you add a sunlight, like we just did, in Cinema or in Octane, you have this line, and the line is the direction of your sun. So if I rotate this down, straight down, that's going to be like 12 noon pointed right down at that thing. And there's actually a checkbox. Oh, and real quick. So you see how it looks all chunky right here? That's because we need to up the segments for the sphere. Now it's looking nice. But let's do, let's hide the daylight, and I'll show you guys what this HDRI is. You see in the picture viewer, it's just like this scene around your geometry. It's lighting your scene based off of an HDRI picture. So if we were to bring the exposure down in the camera, you could see how those highlights, there's actually detail in the highlights back here, right? So an HDRI picture is made up of 5 or 6 different pictures at varying exposures. So you have a lot of light detail in your scene. And then you combine that with the sunlight, and you see how the HDRI went away. Now basically what you can do is check the, let's see, in the sunlight tab you can scroll down and check the sky texture, and then now you have both. You have the sunlight and the HDRI working together, and that is what I did for the Zen Garden scene right here. Oh, one sec, guys. Be right back. All right. So, let's see. Let's start a new scene and build out our room. What is the room going to look like? Now, it's easy to do this when you have reference. A lot more difficult when you don't have reference. So, let's go to good old Google and look up interior Zen Gardens. So something like this is pretty sweet. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. Very peaceful looking. Yeah, this kind of stuff is awesome. It's very bright. Something like this. It's kind of like an architectural rendering. This might be a render, who knows? This is super cool. I like this a lot. I'll save this guy. This is pretty sweet too, very simple. This is a good one. We'll save that. Ooh, this is nice. This is very, very nice. So yeah, basically you just want to find references that you guys, oh wow, that is amazing. I wish my house looked like this one day. Basically you want to find references so that it's easier to get to your final image. It's a lot more difficult when you're just going off the top of the head. It's going to take a lot longer. Oh, what? This is crazy. Okay, so it'd be really cool to do something with water as well. Like this is super cool. That looks absolutely beautiful. Let's see. What do you guys think? So yeah, I'm going for a modern style and a minimalist style. I like simplicity, definitely a lot of that. But it's also cool to have something like there's this guy Cornelius Domrick, and I talked about him on the last stream. But basically, he has some. Oh my goodness, he has some incredible renders. This one here certainly is not simple, but you can tell that like all the detail that went into this totally makes up the image. And simplicity is not something he was going for with this one. A lot of work went into this image, and it really, really pays off. It looks incredible. The detail on this is insane. There's like dirt and rocks above the door frame here. All these different posters that are custom made. He has daylight and warm light mixing together to give a really, really cool look. He's got a lot of Easter eggs hidden in here too, and he actually on his website gives away some of these models. So yeah, corneliusdomrick.com. Give it a little look-see. It's a great website, great resource. He has a lot of good textures and stuff too that he's giving away. Let's just start building something out here. Okay. So usually what I'll do is I'll drop a person in because that's my scale. I'll know how big this room is going to be. And I'll just start building this out with planes. So I'm holding control, and when you drag, it'll make a copy. So I'm kind of just shaping it with planes right now, and then I'll come back over this and start to build it out with maybe a cube or something, depending on what's best. All right. So in Octane, switching between direct lighting and path tracing. Direct lighting, I believe, I don't know, you maybe only have a couple bounces of light in the scene. But when you switch to path tracing, that's going to bounce light around a lot more. You can see how the sphere, there's a lot of shadow at the bottom of this thing and a little bit at the top as well. These corners is pretty dark compared to the light that's coming from the left side of the screen hitting this on the right. And if you switch to path tracing, you can see how it's a much more realistic lighting setup. Now, there's times when direct lighting and path tracing look very similar, but in this case, when we're doing an interior scene, you're going to want to use path tracing at the end of the day because that's going to bounce the light around a whole bunch more. And you can see the difference between those if you go to compare, enable A/B comparison, and you want to store this scene, switch to direct light, and you can, see the difference between direct lighting and path tracing. And I'm sure it's similar for all the other renderers out there. If you're using Blender, it's the Eevee renderer, or if you're using Arnold or Redshift, I'm sure there's very similar toggles there for direct lighting and path tracing. But for the sake of setting this up, right, we're fine with direct lighting. We can uncheck that. Let's save our scene. All right, let's see. Maybe let's go for like a circular setup. Something like a pool of water in the center of a room or something, a circular room like this. And I'm just knocking this stuff out. I'm blocking it out really pretty quick here. And you know, you want to start as general as possible and then get more detailed. So first thing I'm going to do is find my frame, but only after I build out the scene. Something like that. And that will be, there'll be like a pool of water inside there, so we can add a cylinder, and that will be our water right there. And then let's see, you can like walk around the outside of this thing, but let's put like a roof on this so it'll get taller. And then we'll duplicate it again and we'll inset it so that you have like a bit of like a ceiling. And if we can get a camera like in here, like right at this point, and we get a nice little wide angle view of this. Let's see. Actually, let's do this right. So I'm in camera view right here. You can see this little toggle, it's checked. So we'll uncheck that. We'll get out of camera view. And then you should see your camera right in there. Yes. If you select your camera, let's just zero out all of these settings as well as the rotation. So we have just the camera on the ground right down here. Another little trick, if we go back into camera view and we go to options and uncheck the check camera option here, we can dip out of camera view, but our render will still stay in camera view. So we can actually start to see. Oh wait, that's not right. That didn't work. Didn't work how I thought it would work. Anyway, let's keep going. So it's easier now to control our camera because we've zeroed out the settings. If we go into like our 4-panel view and go to the top, we can see what's going on here. Let's go wide angle on this. Let's start with like a 24. And let's get our aspect ratio right. 16:9 is fine. This is like 1920 by 1080, your standard like HD video. We can lock the ratio and bring that down to 960 by 540 so that we can get a little bit smaller render here, even smaller. Let's go 600 or 480 by 270, super tiny. But that's okay because we're still blocking things out. So now we want to tilt our camera up. So we could do that by hitting R when you have your camera selected and rotating this little guy there. Now it'd be awesome if we could see the entire ceiling of this thing. So it'd be the equivalent of, you know, basically what we just did right there. We switched it from a 24 to a 12 and you're getting, you know, this setup right here, which is looking pretty sweet. And I think if we light and texture this and throw in a, you know, a tree in the middle of this little pond right here, I think it could look incredible. So let's start doing that. I wonder if a 12 is the right move or if we should just make the geometry bigger. At the end of the day, I know that the geometry here is going to need to be, it needs more segments, right? So if you go to object, you can just crank those segments to 100, and you can see how, like, you see this blocky, low poly looking deal here. We just need to up the segments. Now we're getting a bit more detail in there. Let's see if this camera goes back any further. We're going back into top view, select your camera, and you'll notice here that if we are in local view, the camera is going to go down gradually over time. That's because we rotated the camera, or we tilted the camera up a little bit. So you're going to want to make sure in Cinema, you're going to hit W, and that's going to switch between local and world view, and that'll bring the camera straight back when you're in world view. It'll be the same deal in Blender. I doubt the hotkey is W, but you want to switch between local and world view. I like this this camera angle. This 12 is actually really nice. We can maybe 15. No, 12's the move. I like it a lot. Just for just to test it, let's literally duplicate everything. So let's get out of our camera view, zoom out here. This is our setup. Let's group all this stuff, and we'll just call that scene. Control drag to duplicate, and we'll move it over to the side here. And I'm just gonna do a test and see if I make the actual like architecture larger, if it'll give us a different look. Because that way we'll be able to go from, instead of a 12, we can go to like maybe a 24. So let's try something. Let's see if this works. If we, let's see, how could we scale this all uniformly? Let's select our scene. Let's hit the enable axis tool, or L, and then you can move the axis around, and we'll put it right in the place of the camera. And you can hit L to turn that off. And now when we scale this scene, right, we had the null object, or this folder, selected, and we move the axis for that folder. And if we have that selected, hit T and scale things up. That should work. Let's go into camera view, and let's scale things up. Try again. Oh, weird. Okay, not doing anything. That's probably because everything's relative. We should set that to 24. And yeah, I guess it's not doing anything because everything is relative. You know, everything is moving at the same rate, or the same size, right? So let's just try scaling up. Let's see. How would we do this? We would scale these cylinders and move them forward and up. Okay, and then we would need to scale. We would need more room here. Our outermost cylinder would need to be scaled up. And then we can move the camera outside of the scene, and then move everything besides the camera forward so that our camera is backed up against the wall. Something like that. And we can raise the camera a little bit to see into that pool. And here's a good example of the local versus world view. Right? This is moving the camera locally. That's forward for the camera, and that's up for the camera in terms of how it's oriented. And if you hit W, you're going to world view, and now that is moving things up and down dependent on the world. So let's go up a little bit. Let's come in. And honestly, I think we had it in our other view here. So it's that versus that. And I think this is way better. So let's delete that test we did. This is going to be our scene. Okay, so definitely, Michael says we should make a little island inside the pool that grows the tree, and the tree should be has hanging lights. Ooh, okay, interesting. Let's I like that. Let's do a little island here where the tree will be growing from. So we can do that as pretty easily. We'll hop out of camera view, and let's. I'm hitting S to snap to any object I have selected, and it's such a handy tool if you ever get lost. If your your viewing window just goes crazy like it just did right there. Wow, that's perfect timing. Hit S, and it'll snap it back to your scene. If you hit H, it'll show all, right? So if you have like say a cube way over there, you hit H, it'll frame everything that you have in your scene. And if you want to go to the cube, just hit S, and you're in. Select that, hit S again. It's just good way to navigate. And I feel that when you hop into a 3D program for the first time, it's very daunting because you feel like you're stuck in quicksand. You're trying your hardest to get forward, and it's not working. So that's because you don't know how to navigate. You literally don't know how to navigate the program. Same for After Effects or Photoshop. If you don't know how to navigate the program, the new program you're in, it's going to feel very slow, and you're just going to feel like so much energy is being spent learning how to just move. So I think the most important thing when hopping into a new program is learning how to move around the program. And if you can get comfortable with moving around the program, right, then you can start thinking on top of that. Then you don't have to worry about, oh, how do I move? How do I get my viewport right? You're thinking about, what do I put in my viewport? So really make sure you guys understand how to move around in the program that you're using, whether it's Blender or Maya or 3ds Max or Photoshop or Substance, whatever. Whether you're making music too, same deal. Just know how to navigate around and be comfortable with that. So then you can feel like you're running, You don't have to be crawling through quicksand anymore. Okay, let's make the little island. So we will. What will we do? We'll duplicate one of these things. Let's try the cube. So I have the cube selected, and if I hit T for scale and hold Control, you'll make a new one. And because it's being scaled down, it's being scaled on all axes, it is disappearing under the water there. We'll hit E and bring it up, and we'll continue to scale it down. All right, and at the end of the day, like, we might just actually make a little island, but this is kind of like a little pedestal for this thing to be on. We can switch this out pretty easily for a cylinder. I'm holding Control. So okay, here's a good tip too. Let's say in this case we don't need to do that. We don't need to hold Control because it's in the center of the scene. But if you want to spawn a new primitive object in the center of another object you have in the scene, all you have to do is hold Control, and the thing will be spawned right in the center of that. So that's another thing for navigation, right? Let's take this person, duplicate them, drag them out here for a little test, and rotate them all crazy, right? And let's say we want to give them a top hat, and it's like, well, I could just, we know it's going to be a cylinder, but okay, the cylinder's way over there. No, I'm kind of lost. Well, that's why you hit S. Snap to it, and you're going to try and drag this cylinder all the way over to this guy, and you're going to try and line it up so that it's on his head. And it's already difficult because things are all janky, and you guys get it, right? This is a difficult process. You could do that, or select your guy, hold Control, and spawn a sphere, right? And it's going to spawn right on him, and the orientation is going to be correct too. So right now we're at world orientation. If you hit W, we'll go to local orientation, bring it up, scale it down. Right now he's got a funny hat. So that is a good way to navigate the program, right? The easier it is to do stuff, the faster you're going to get the idea from your head out onto the screen, right? Into the program. So what were we doing? We were making a sphere or a cylinder here because we want like a little pedestal for that thing to be on. Okay. Next, we need a tree. We're missing a tree. So I'm actually using a plugin called Forester, and it does cost money, but it's awesome. If you guys are looking for free trees, I'm sure you can go to turbosquid.com, right? And type in tree and set the price to free. Now you have 222 trees that are for free. You have Blender files. You can search by, let's see, format. You can search by OBJ is a file type that works across all 3D software. Same deal for FBX. That should be universal. Now you have your specific file types. If you're in 3ds Max, you'd search for Max. C4D, obviously, Maya, Blender, right? You have all those different file types. But at the end of the day, you can just search for FBX and OBJ and know that that'll work across all platforms. So you can download this one. This is a cool tree. It looks really nice. Same deal here. This is kind of like a Fortnite-y cartoon looking tree. And yeah, you can just scrub through here and grab a cool looking tree that is free. You can also pay for trees if you'd like. You got a little bonsai tree, a willow tree or something. Yeah, you guys get the idea. But I'm going to use Forester. So let's see, Forester. We will make a Forester tree. And we'll render our scene here. And it is looking like it needs some leaves. Let's see here. Which tree should we do? So this is the one I did last time. It's a crazy looking tree. We can do a weeping willow. And you can always change this later. Under tree parameters, you can set the, let's see, viewport levels and render levels. They should have leaves. Why does it not have leaves? How's everybody doing? Yeah, it's tough. I feel like anytime you open a new program, you feel like you're in quicksand, or anytime you're doing something new, that's the feeling. But the more you practice it, the faster you'll get, and you want to get to the point where you're flying through the program. And that's when I think you, when you're flying through a program, that, I don't know if that's master level, but maybe if you're like flying in a jet through the program, then maybe that's master level. But yeah, everyone's going to start in quicksand, and then they're going to get out of the quicksand, and they're going to be crawling, and then they're going to kind of stand up and start walking, and then they'll eventually get running, and then you'll start sprinting, and then you'll be jumping, and then you'll be flying through the program, and that's what you want to get to. It just takes time. It looks like this render is not rendering, so yes, C4D is not responding. I'm going to reboot this. Michael, thanks for joining. I'm trying to find a time that works for everybody. So, yeah, I appreciate you stopping by for a little bit, man. This will be on my YouTube channel. It's not going to be live, but the full video will go out onto my pwnisher channel. So you can be able to catch it there. Oh, Nick, yes. Okay, so Forcer is awesome, and I also have Hot4D as well. That's basically a like ocean generator. It stands for Houdini Ocean something. Oh, I think you have to like apply it to a plane. Yeah. And it gives you these like super realistic ocean maps. Let's see. This thing's the best. It's free. You can up the segments. Right? And you get some really cool like ocean texture here. And it's using a displacement map. You can turn this up so it's really nice. Right? Throw a nice little texture on that. And it animates really well too. Let me see. Where's the animation on this? Is it time? Yeah, look at that. It's so cool. I'll see if I can't throw a link to this plugin into the description of this video after we're done. But let's get back to it. Here we are. Let's throw our tree in and start texturing this thing. All right, so I kind of want to go for another concrete vibe all around here. So let's get ourselves some concrete textures. All right. Actually, you know what? Before we texture, let's light. So, let's grab an Octane daylight system and rotate it down. Straight 90. Boom. That's looking cool. If you click the little sun tab here and set the turbidity to a higher number, that's basically going to start turning your sun into an overcast day. So if that goes to 5, you can start to see, things are getting smoothed out a little bit. You can crank the power, and you can see here. Look at this render. You see how there's no light on the bottom part of the ceiling. If we switch to path tracing, it's going to fill all that stuff in. But for the sake of setting up our scene and stuff, we can keep that on direct lighting for now. Let's add an HDRI image. So I'm going to make an Octane sky, right click it. I have HDRI link from Grayscale Gorilla. It is the best plugin for adding HDRIs quickly to your scene. All you have to do is hit the little that little tab here for your environment and click and drag the texture, boom, into the signal. And then now you can launch the browser and look through all of your HDRI images. These are all Grayscale Gorilla HDRI images. They are the best. I love them. They actually, later this year, they're coming out with a little space HDRI pack. And they hooked it up in the meantime. So shout outs to Grayscale Gorilla. They really are the best. Let's turn off our sun so we can see what's going on. Oh, come on, computer. There we go. Yeah. So you can see the HDRI, like the space HDRI is lighting our scene. If we set that to path tracing, it'll really get in here and give you a cool super cool look. You know, we could have a Zen garden in space. And it's cool because you can like rotate this stuff around. You can find the right angle on that. Wow, that's pretty crazy. But yeah, let's find the right one. So we have like some end of day HDRI images here. This is actually pretty nice. I'm going to set my image to linear. And you can rotate this around to give you the right lighting you want. You can kind of get like a center lighting, like that. And you want to combine this with your sunlight, right? So let's change the turbidity back to 2.2, and let's mess with the angle of the sun so we can like find the best position. Like that would be pretty sweet. Right there. Or something like that. It's pretty cool. Let's go with this for now. We can always change it later, right? Now, if you want to combine it with your HDRI image, you would click the little daylight tag and scroll down until you see this little checkbox, mix sky texture. You check that, and it's going to use your sunlight as the like direct source, and it's going to use the HDRI image, you know, as your sky, basically. So let's see. If we rotate the sky around, you can still see how the sky is being used and helping with lighting the scene here. And I still want it to be more of an overcast situation, so let's take the turbidity of the sky here and set that to like 5 or something. And let's roll with this for now. Um, 640 by 360. I'll get a bit more resolution on that. How's everybody doing? We are making a interior Zen garden space. Last week I made one, and like it turned out really cool, and actually you guys liked it a lot. But I want to make another one. I want to do something a bit more symmetrical, with a bit more light involved. Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw the video on Corridor Crew where we did like this Valentine's Day challenge, and we had to make an image in 45 minutes. And for some reason, my computer blue screen twice. It kept crashing, and I was only able to get out an image of like just flowers. But you know, I was happy with how it turned out. All right, so let's start lighting this thing. Texturing this thing. Okay, we can do like concrete all around here. And I know we want this little central part here to be like a little water fountain. So let's do the water real quick. I'm going to make a glossy material and drop it on there. And we'll set the index to 0. So it's basically a mirror, a reflective mirror. And let's grab, okay, the cylinder that it's on, right? We'll give it some height segments here. So I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. I'm sorry, not height segments. We want let's see, what do we want? We want to chop this. So we want to have different segments coming up to this point, and for some reason I don't think that's a thing you can add with just the base primitive. So we'll hit C, make it editable. We'll go to our little edge mode here. So we're selecting our edges. We'll hit UL, or I'm sorry, we'll hit UY. Is that the one? KL. Yeah, KL is the hotkey for that, and KL is loop path cut. You can go to select and hit loop. Oh, go to select and hit. Is it in here somewhere? I don't know where it is. Loop path cut. You can also hit Shift C and hit loop path cut, and it'll be right there. KL. It's probably under mesh or something. Anyway, if you click once right here, you'll have this little tab up here, and you can shift around where the cut's gonna be. Just set it to like 50% and start adding a bunch of cuts. That's good. Hit enter, back to selection mode, and that will allow us to, hopefully we can zoom in here. That is going to allow us to add some displacement to this cylinder. And you can't displace the geometry without geometry, so that's why we added all those cuts. If you hold down Shift and drop down your modifiers, you can throw a displacer on it. And in the displacer, if you go to shading, and let's throw some noise on it, and you can see already that gives us kind of like a lake or a pond look, ripples in the water. You can take the cylinder, hold Alt, and throw a subdivision surface on it, and that'll smooth things out even further. Right? And then you can mess with the displacement. So we can, you can up the contrast so it's a bit more extreme. Or you could just, keep the contrast at 0 and go to the displacer tab, go to Object, and work the strength down or up a little bit, and that's just going to give you a little bit of texture to the lake or to our pond. Okay, so let's crank that a little bit more actually. There you go. Now you can start to see a little bit of texture in there. Okay. So I think the next thing we need to do is grab like a concrete texture and start to color this thing. Magnificent Ben, welcome. I'm glad you're joining us. Thanks for watching the last tutorial, and I'm glad you caught us on this live one. Ooh, what do I think about moonlight? I think moonlight would be really nice. And we can mess with that. We can mess with that once we, get going. You can always change the lighting, but this is actually a good way for us to, kind of see where we're going, and then we can get more specific. We can always back up and change the lighting or change the camera angle. So let's get some concrete in here. Okay. A couple options for concrete. I have the Grayscale Gorilla Everyday Materials collection, and that is basically like stuff that's preloaded in that you can, easily drop into your scene. Some preset textures that are really nice. We can do that, or we can go to Megascans, which I use all the time. Megascans is incredible. They have, oh, this is perfect. Man, it's a gravestone, unfortunately, but, we can throw it in somewhere. Maybe it's a gravesite. They have the best. Look at these textures, are incredible. and they're all tileable too, right? So you can see how they'll tile. If you guys are trying to do, you know, carrots, just a sea of carrots, they got you right here. Super easy. Here's another Japanese gravestone. Oh man, it'd be really intense to do like scatter a bunch of Japanese gravestones across like, you know, the water or something. Some still pond with a tree. Maybe that's what we'll do. And then we can throw a couple worn soccer balls in there. Dirty styrofoam. Anyway, okay guys, I'm getting carried away. I literally go to this website all the time to check all their new stuff. We need concrete, so let's go to the concrete tab over here and see what they got. Stained concrete wall. Okay. What else do we have? You know, we have a lot of good barriers and stuff. I'm looking for like concrete slab material. Something like this. That's a bit much though. Smooth blocks, that could be interesting. Concrete wall. We can try this. Let's give this a shot. So I'm gonna log in, download that. And we will implement it into our scene. So give me a second while I download this, guys. How's everybody doing? Are you guys following along, making your own scene, or are you just kind of watching? Okay. So we have our texture that we can use. So we'll go in here and we'll start dropping these different images onto our texture. So we have all these different tabs, and these tabs make up a texture. So let's, for example, let's go in real close so that you guys can see what each one of these objects or each one of these images is doing to build up the texture. So zoom in right about there. Cool. So first off, we have the albedo image, and that's basically just the color image, right? And the mapping is off. It's hard to tell that the mapping's off from this image. We're so close, but I've just done this so many times that I know the mapping's going to be off. So you can either hit projection here when you have your image selected that you just dropped in, or you can drag and drop it, the projection, and throw it in to the projection. It's the same thing. And we're going to want to set that from mesh UV to box. And then that will actually have it so the image isn't stretched in weird ways. It's not being stretched to the geometry of the shape you have. It's just, you know, the image tiled around, you know, any sort of geometry you have. And right now it's looking yeah, so it's looking pretty good. Let's keep going. I'm going to take off the diffuse though, so you guys can hopefully see what the normal map and the bump map does. So I'm gonna drag in the normal map, and the normal map is basically it's going to make it appear as if the geometry is going up or down, like it has extra detail that it really doesn't have. So we'll put that into the normal tab, and you should see here all these streaks, and that's because the projection is off. So we want to just drag this projection tab into the projection tab for the normal. And then you can start to see it take shape. And, it's a bit, it's very subtle here. And maybe with YouTube compression, it's more difficult to see. But let's keep going. We have the bump map. And the bump map is going to give us, it's very similar to a normal map. A normal map is a bit better in the sense that it pushes and pulls pixels a bit more accurately, and it pushes and pulls them left and right as well, and up and down, I believe. The bump map is just fake artificial texture or fake artificial detail based on a black and white map. So we'll put that projection tab on there, and we'll throw it into the bump tab, and then you can see a bit more detail comes through. Let's put our image back on, and you can start to see this concrete wall being built up. Next up, we have the roughness and the specular. So roughness determines how light bounces off of the object. And we talked about this last time. Basically, my phone here, let's see. So this phone is 0 roughness. It's 100% reflective, right? You can see very, very detailed reflections in the surface of this phone. However, the back of the phone is still technically reflective, but it's a very rough reflection. So that's what the roughness map determines, is what things are rough versus what things are not. So we'll drag in the roughness map here, and we'll pipe in our projection, pipe the roughness into roughness, and same for specular. Specular determines, like, the iPhone screen was reflective, right? But how reflective do you want it to be? That's what the specular determines, right? And finally, like those are the basic building blocks of a texture right there. But finally, we can use a displacement map. And the displacement map is actually pretty cool because it's going to actually push and pull geometry. So let's throw that projection tab into projection, or into the displacement. And with displacement, for some reason, you can't just put it in there. But that's because displacement comes with a couple options. So I'm going to grab this displacement node. Boom, right there. And we'll pipe that in. And we will pipe that into displacement. And already, it's hard to tell if things look normal or not. But let's grab displacement. We'll set the mid-level to 0.5 because basically it's saying push everything either up or down, and you want it to go evenly from the middle. So that's what 0.5 is. Height of 10 centimeters is fine for now. Level of detail, let's crank that to 4K because we can. And already, so this should be working, but I know it's not because I've run into this issue many times. The mapping isn't going to work properly. I think it's an Octane bug. So if we come in here, we can see the displacement map right here. It's stretched thin, even though we told it not to do that because we put the projection tab on there. It doesn't work for displacement for some reason. So there is a workaround though. And you're going to have to basically come in here. You're going to have to delete the projection tab for all the images. Now everything lines up properly. and you're going to want to control the way the image is displayed across your geometry from the actual texture you've applied here in your little like viewer. So it's on this tube. This tube lights up, so you want this texture right here. And it's set to UVW mapping. We will take that to, it is a tube, which is cylindrical, so we'll try cylinder. That looks ugly. Let's try cubic. That actually looks normal. Cubic usually looks normal. Let's zoom in. And you can see here that it's actually looking pretty nice. You know, you have a lot of nice detail. You have these little like marks where maybe that's where they poured the concrete from. Yeah. You know, it's very subtle, but that's giving you your look. That's for your walls and stuff. We can do like a reflective concrete floor as well. So for that, let's just grab, you know, you can use the same image if you'd like, but let's, for the sake of speed here, I'm just going to open up this live DB viewer, and that's where I'm going to pull some of the Grayscale Gorilla everyday materials into the scene because it's very fast. How's everybody doing? Everyone hanging in? Caleb, I'm working on texturing this semi-interior Zen garden. Yeah, you can totally UV map stuff in C4D. I don't really know how. That's something I need to probably research. But yeah, you should be able to like wrap and unwrap stuff. I've just never really dug into that too much. All right. How's it going, everybody? Displacement. Ralph says displacement maps do affect the geometry and can get a little funky if you don't give it enough to work with. Exactly. So the enough to work with that he's referring to is the actual geometry. So maybe what we need to do is give our tube here more segments to work with. So we can give it like 25 cap segments, and we'd have to make it editable. And then we can come around here, hit UI. Is UI or UL? What am I looking for? Dang, I all of a sudden just forgot my shortcuts. UL, UK. What was it called? It was like loop path. Yeah, oh, KL, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, we can come in here, just make a whole bunch of cuts. Boom, hit enter, and then now the displacement should be a bit more detailed. Also, remember from 2 streams ago, we were talking about how no edge is sharp. There's no such thing as a sharp edge. So all of these edges here are super sharp. And technically, that's not correct. So what we'll do is we'll go to our tube here, and we'll bevel those edges. And the best way I know to do that is instead of, you know, selecting your edge and beveling it out like, well, yeah, that doesn't work either. Let's try that again. You know, instead of beveling out your edge like this normally and baking it in to the geometry, I want to try and edit as non-invasive as possible. That way, if there's ever changes, you can make them. You hold tube, or you select tube, hold shift, and we will use a bevel modifier. And you see how it bevels everything? We don't want it to bevel everything. That's just, you know, a waste of geometry. So you can use angle right here, this little checkbox. You hit that, and it's going to say, well, what's the threshold? You know, I'll only bevel things that are above the, or let's say I'll only bevel things above the 94-degree mark. And if you set that below 90, you're only beveling things above that right there, that degree. And you can, say, oh, I want a subdivision of 2 on that, so it's not just like a solid line. And that'll give you a more detailed and realistic scene, because light is going to catch that edge and it's going to look really nice. And you see how it catches the bottom too. That's because of our bevel modifier, and we will do that to basically all of our edges in the scene here. So this tube here, right, that we have as our like little pond barrier, if you hadn't made your primitive object editable yet, you can select it, and there's actually a little fillet or fillet, I don't know how you, one of those is proper. You check that box and it's going to actually bake in a little bevel for you. And bake in is actually the wrong word. You can turn it off, right? It's fully editable. That's why I try and keep my objects, I guess is editable. Editable is the right word. Try and keep them editable for as long as possible. And I try to keep things as clean as possible. So you don't want to bake in any geometry that you don't need to bake in. I think that's just a personal preference. Other people might do it differently. But I do like this really intense bevel here. It rounds it off in a really cool way. Okay. Let's continue. So, all right, we need to continue texturing. I'm going to grab a concrete texture from the LiveDB materials thing. So actually, if you have Octane, it comes with LiveDB, and you just have materials ready to go already. We want non-organic, and it looks like they don't have concrete for some reason. Maybe it's under one of these. Carbon, paint, cloth, glass, plastic, metal. So this is all built into Octane, but recently I added the Everyday Materials pack from Grayscale Gorilla, and they have concrete. So for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to grab one of these, and I'll do something pretty reflective so we can catch some cool light. Let's do this one right here, Concrete 8. Let's download that, and it's going to pop up right down in here, and we'll drag that onto the floor. Cool. So we can select that, and let's hop out of our camera view and get right up onto this floor here so we can see what's going on. Yep, that's concrete. We'll come in here, we'll set all of these images, we'll throw a projection tab on them, and we just want to clean up the projection. We'll set it to box, and that's going to properly distribute the texture across all that. We could set the transform. We'll set it high to see what we're doing here. Yeah, that looks nice. Then you're getting your texture and your detail in there. I think 5 was good. So let's hop back into our camera, and we want this floor to be pretty reflective. So if we go to index, which controls the reflectivity of your material, and we set it to 1, it's going to be chrome. And you can see how that gives like a really cool look, right? It's a very there's a roughness image here plugged in. So if we unplug that, you're going to see how it's basically just a chrome ground. And we don't want quite that, but we have our roughness tab that spreads the light across the area, which is very, very nice. And it's a bit reflective, so we can start to crank the index back up. And right when you get higher than 1, for some reason, the image becomes not really reflective at all. 8 is about as reflective as 1, because 1 is fully chrome, right? So that means 8 is just under fully chrome, and then you go down and down and down. And I think somewhere around here is nice, because it still spreads out the ground. And let's get this barrier system here going. Let's bring it down along with the plane here and the tree. So let's actually start cleaning up some of this stuff. So we have our ceiling. You gotta stay organized here, because it'll quickly get out of hand. We have our wall, our ceiling, our wall. We'll have our floor, which, yeah, we have our floor right here. And that, the ceiling, our wall, and our floor, we can group that and just call that like foundation. And then we have like this pond, right? So we can select all the stuff in the pond. This is our water. We have our like I don't know, pond wall. I'm sure there's a better name for that. And then we have our tree. So we'll drop that. We'll call this pond. There's our like island that our tree is on. And then the rest is like scene stuff. And I actually do group all that, the lighting and the camera stuff, into a folder called scene. That way you can just break everything down here and be as organized as possible. So next we want to texture this like barrier that's holding our water in. All right. Let's do let's try the same grayscale gorilla material. And I think we can brighten it up. So let's come into the node editor. And we will drag a color correction node right on that little wire that's connecting that. And it'll pipe right in automatically. And we'll just set the gamma up to like 1.5. Or sorry, other way around, 0.8. It's gonna make it a little bit brighter. Sweet. All right. Let's work on our island a little bit. So instead of a little concrete slab like we have here, I kind of want it to actually be, like, you know, a rocky kind of surface. So I'm going to actually make a new scene real quick and see what I have in terms of rocks. So I'm using Megascans again for the rock stuff, and you can go to, let's see, if you just type in like 3D asset, you'll get all their 3D stuff, which is actually like geometry involved. It's not just, you know, image textures. And they have a lot of really good stuff, as you guys can see. And we'll find something like this, but you know, more of an island shape, right? So we can narrow down our search and call this 3D asset and look for rocks. And already we're kind of getting into the territory here. This is perfect. And I think I already own this. Let me double check. Yeah, I believe I do. Okay, so let's build it real quick. And this is super fun because it's like 3D Legos. We'll grab, boom, there it is, our rocks right here. It's very similar, but I think this will work. So it comes in, this is your geometry. I'm hitting N and then B on the keyboard to switch the shading style. You can do that up here by going to display. You see NB. And that's just so you guys can see the geometry of this. It's pretty low poly, right? Doesn't look too good. But let's build this up. This is very exciting. I'll do a quick HDRI image just so we can see what this thing looks like. Sure. Here we go. So, in the material, we're going to start adding these images again. And I'll do the actual color image, the diffuse image last. So, let's start with the normal map. And we can drag this in. And look how much of a difference this makes. And I'll store this render buffer and enable the A/B comparison. When I throw the normal map in here, check this out. Look at how much detail is added just from the normal map. Isn't that crazy? So this is a way you are going to save a lot of memory and a lot of computer juice, basically. And you're not actually going to have this geometry, this detailed geometry, modeled in to your model here, because this is what we're looking at. This is what we're working with, right? But when you start building these things up, you're getting this super intense detail right here. And even if we zoom in, you can look at that. It's crazy. Let's keep going. That's just the normal map. Let's do the bump map real quick. Where's the bump map? Here we go. Drag this guy in. And we'll pipe this guy. Let's do this again, right? So we'll store the render buffer, and we'll throw the bump map in and to see what it's actually doing. And you see it's giving us an extra layer of detail across the board here. Let's keep going. Let's store again. And let's bring in our specular map, which determines how reflective this is going to be. If you want it to be like a shiny, wet rocks, we can crank the specular up a whole bunch. That's not making the biggest difference, but you can still see a difference here, across the top. Let's store that again. And let's throw in our roughness. And again, that's determining how the reflection is spread out across your geometry. And again, not the biggest difference, because when you're adding the bump and the normal maps, it kind of spreads the reflection out automatically on its own. Okay, what's next? We have, I think we can just go with the color here and pipe that guy in, and we should be seeing, unless my computer's gonna crash. There it is. We should be seeing the actual image there. And yeah, that's a pile of rocks for sure. Some mossy rocks. But here, check this out. So you see how the edge of everything here is so there's not a lot of detail in the edges, right? Usually you'd have a little bit of moss coming up here, right? And that's what the displacement map is for. The displacement map is actually going to shift the geometry of your polygons here. So we'll grab in this displacement map. And remember, again, with displacement maps, you need this little displacement node, because that's how we tweak our settings for the displacement map. and we'll pipe that into displacement, and you can already see how the geometry, boom, it puffs up. You know, we'll set the store render, and that doesn't look good at all because it's being dispersed by 10 centimeters. That's a lot. I think you only really need 1, and we'll set the mid-level to 0.5. What if we set it to 2, and then we set our level of detail to 4K, because it is a 4K image. And you can see, I mean, obviously there's a big difference there because of the 10 centimeter deal, but let's store the render buffer, and let's set our height down to like 0.1, so nothing's happening, and we'll set our level of detail to 256. And you can see, look at the geometry across this like moss. It's actually being displaced, and the edge of this thing, it's not very obvious, but the edge is somewhat being affected, like right in here. And this is going to be a lot more apparent when you're applying a displacement texture to, say, like a sphere, and instead of a perfectly, you know, a perfect edge, it's going to be all jagged like rocks and stuff. Last quick tip for you guys when you're texturing in Octane, and I'm sure all the other texturers have the same deal. Let's say you have an image that is black and white only, like say your roughness or your bump or your displacement, you know, or your specular. All of those images that are black and white are using a little bit more RAM because they actually let me rephrase that. All of these images you're using to build up this texture is all taking a little bit of RAM away from your computer and memory away from your computer and slowing your computer down just a little bit more. Now, with color, there's more information in these color nodes, right? But when you're bringing in black and white images, the Octane thinks they're color images. And it's using as much data and as much RAM and memory as it would be on a colored image. But since these are just black and white images, you don't need to be using all that computer juice. So all you have to do is select your black and white images, go to type, and set it to float. And that will actually spare your computer a little bit of space and be working just a little bit faster. It builds up. It really builds up when you have a whole bunch of materials. Gilbert. Oh, what's up, bud? Hey. See, this guy gets stomping over the keyboard and then it's over. How's everybody doing? You guys following along? Thanks, Alex. I appreciate you coming in here, man. It's super fun for me. I love making these different scenes and whatnot. So thanks for coming by. I appreciate all you guys for watching. Oh, you guys are awesome. Gilbert is about 4 months old. He's chilling right now. And then you got Teddy, who's about 3 years. And he's a huge cat. He's down there on the ground. Ow, Gilbert, chill. But yeah, Gilbert's been great. He's been such a little bud. All right, go play, all right? Go play. Okay, so now that we have our rock asset built out, let's go ahead and place it in our scene. So I'm just going to copy it, move over to our other scene and paste it. And there it is, right in the middle. Give it a second. It's generating the materials down in the bottom left. You can see it thinking. Yes, and Gilbert is adopted from a local PetSmart. And we are super glad to adopt that little bud. He's great. Okay, let's render our scene and see what we got. My first instinct is I think we're going to need to scale these rocks up. They're a little small. But we shall see. We shall see. Yeah, so let's get out of camera view. And let's say you forget to get out of camera view and you just start, zooming in here. And you're like, "Oh no, my camera was set and it was perfect." If you hit Control Shift Z, that will undo camera moves only. And then you can get out of camera view and select your rocks, hit S and it'll snap to it. And let's scale these guys up, bring them forward, and I think that'll probably do the trick here. Let's bring them up, rotate them a little bit. Bring them forward. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that looks really cool. So I'll put one in the back and then I'll duplicate it and put one in the front. Something like that. And then we got a little island there. I'm not really digging the fact that everything looks black and white, even though it's textured as color, or textured as concrete. So I think we need to add some color into all of this somehow. So we could, I don't know. Let's see. What's the move on this? Let's try changing out our hdri image here. For something with like a bit of sky, with some clouds. So I'm just kind of cycling through to see what is nice. Hey, did you guys get a chance to look at that Spotify playlist? It's in the description of this video. It's like an ambient playlist I put together for you guys. So yeah, still just trying to find the right HDRI image. Oh, that's nice. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. That's nice. And then we'll mess with our camera settings a little bit and put on like a vignette. Just a little bit. And let's get a look on here. I really like Kodachrome 25. That has a really nice look to it. Okay, so this tree needs help. Let's throw. We need to texture this thing, and it also needs to be a tree. So let's do tree parameters. Let's go to tree library. Okay, here we go. Now we're starting to get something. Ooh, they have bamboo. That's cool. It's like really saturated. I wonder if we can grow the bamboo like super tall with Forester. Tree parameters. Tree size, tree grow. Oh, that's so cool. That's amazing. I have like yet to really mess with this program. Trunk parameters. Segments, radius, trunk displacement, trunk scale. Uh-oh. Let's set that back to 50. I swear there's like a size or a height thing on here. Is it not under tree parameters? Tree size. Alright, let's see. Bamboo's cool, but I'm not really feeling it. Let's go back to the tree library and see what else we got. That's actually pretty cool. It definitely needs... The palm tree's cool, but don't really like that vibe. That's nice. That feels like a bonsai tree. Let's mess with that. So it needs leaves. That's for sure. So let's go to the... There should be like a leaf tab or something. Fruit, leaves. There we go. Start leaf level, leaf multiplier. See if this works. Are there even leaves on this thing? I feel like... Yeah, there's leaves on it, but not a lot. There we go. Like 5 was good. Yeah, okay, so David, man, I get his last name wrong all the time. David Aryu or David Aryev? I think it's He's Octane Jesus. David Ryu. Yeah, David Ryu. So he's incredible. He has like some of the best Octane Cinema4D tutorials of all time. Honestly, it's how I learned how to mess with Cinema4D is because of him. His website has an incredible resource. It's davidru.com. Let's see, davidru.com. And this website is the best. If you go to resources, he has all of these Cinema4D Octane tutorials. If you guys are trying to learn, this is the best place to do so. And he actually had a tutorial on how to do trees in Octane. And Forester is how I figured out, or David is the one who told me about Forester. And he has a little tip. So basically, let's see if we can't replicate this. You see how the light is being blocked by these leaves? Like the light isn't shining through these leaves. And we want the leaves to have a bit of subsurface scattering to them. And subsurface scattering is what happens if you like shine a flashlight behind your ear. You're going to see a bit of, the veins in your ear or the red, the light shining through your ear, right? Or like your finger with the flashlight, same deal. And you have that with leaves. They're not made of steel. The light is going to get through these leaves somehow. And currently with the way Octane or with Forester is set up, you don't get that. So how do we do that? Let's come into our leaf material here. And first off, we need to convert them to Octane materials. So you'll select those two, and you'll go to materials, convert materials, and then select materials again, remove unused. And that is going to change. Oh, hold on, let me undo that real quick. Okay, something's not working. Okay, I think I just needed to re-render the scene. So again, let's go into our leaf material, and it is set to diffuse versus glossy. And now the leaves also have a bit of highlight to them, so we're going to want to mess with that as well. We want to combine a reflective leaf that is transparent. But first we'll start with the transparency, because you can only do with a diffuse material, you don't have the option to make things shiny. And in a glossy or shiny material, you don't have the option to make things transparent, like with subsurface scattering. So we're going to start with the subsurface scattering first, and that is under transmission. It's set to black and it's set to 0. And hopefully if we crank this number up, you should see the light start to pass through these leaves. There you go. Yeah, the light is starting to get through these leaves. And if we set this to kind of like a green color, and I'll just tab to the leaf color there, you can start to see them, dispersing that kind of, that light. The light is passing through the leaves like that. And you set that to a brighter color, and they're gonna, they're going to disperse that hue of color there. So that looks nice. But we also want them to be reflective as well. We want them to catch the sunlight. So what we'll do is make a mix material. We're going to combine both. So let's copy. If you hold Control and drag, you'll make a copy of that leaf. And let's switch it to, instead of a diffuse material, we're going to switch it to a glossy material. And let's apply this glossy material. And real quick, let's do a comparison. So we'll store the render buffer here, and we'll drag our leaf onto our tree. And you should see here, it should update. Why are we not seeing a difference? Maybe I have to re-render the scene. There you go. Okay, so this greener leaf is the sunlight passing through our leaves, and this darker leaf is our original leaf, but with kind of like a specular highlight on it. So you guys can see the difference there. Let's store this render buffer, and let's start to crank up the specular. So roughness will disperse the reflection. So let's crank the roughness and see if we can't get a highlight on these things. And I'm failing to right now. Let's say we set this leaf to like really reflective. Maybe bring the roughness down a little bit. And this all could be determined too on like the angle of the sun. So for instance, the tree might catch more of a reflection from a certain angle, and actually you guys can see it there. Yeah, you can see how it's catching that reflection there. That's what we're going for. So we want to combine these two leaves, and we'll do that using a mixed material. So if you go to materials, make a mixed material, and it's going to give you material 1 and material 2. We'll drag those into that slot there, and it's going to by default mix them half and half. And we just need to replace our leaf on the tree with the mixed material leaf, and then we can see here how we have more of a just a better looking leaf. So let's re-render our scene. There you go. So this is our leaf looking now with our updates, and this is just the specular version. Let me see if I can just do like a before and after here for you guys. So I'll duplicate the leaf. Let's turn this off and put this leaf on here. Render the scene. How's everybody doing right now? You guys hanging in there? Vagard, I mix. You ask a good question. It says, do you make the models yourself, or do you use something like a preset or a mix of both of them when you're making stuff? And the answer is both. I recognize that this is actually something I learned very recently, and I've heard Ian Hubert say this as well as Blender Guru, and they both have the opinion that if you're making a scene, like a big scene like we're doing right now, it is a combination of a lot of different objects. You know, we have a pond, we have a tree, we have, you know, the foundation, the walls, and everything. And this is a very simple example, but basically you're not showing that you can make a tree. You're not modeling a tree and saying I made this tree. You're showing a scene that you can compose, right? So there's no harm in downloading a tree, or there's no harm in downloading, you know, even a person or any model you want. There's no harm in downloading any of that stuff. And people make money through asset packs and whatnot. And you bring them all together to make your final image. And, you know, unless you're saying, you know, I put all this time into modeling this house and bam, here's this house I modeled. Like, that's awesome. You can certainly do that. And that's what we did in the last couple streams with that tank, right? We modeled a whole tank together. And I love modeling, so I'm going to be doing it anyway, you know. But if it's something more specific and unique, you might have to model it. But if it's something like a bicycle or a car, you can download those things very easily and just use them in your scene and get going very quickly. So it looks like Cinema is crashing again. So let's try this one more time. Willed87 says that the ambient tracks make him sleepy. I don't know. Yeah, I guess they inspire me more so than put me to sleep. And I do listen to them when I go to bed, but I I love writing and I love directing and I love coming up with ideas. I love coming up with scenes, and the ambient music helps me and inspires me to come up with more scenes, and it helps me see something in my head. The music helps me see something in my head, and then eventually I can put it out, either whether it's on paper or in 3D. So yeah, that's why I love that ambient music. It's very cinematic. Okay, so it crashed, and we're going to have to remake that leaf, but I'll do it in 2 seconds here. I really appreciate you guys. Really do. Thank you so much. I hope that you guys are learning stuff. I hope we're learning stuff together. Please use that Discord server. Join the Discord server. The link to it is in the description of this stream. Hop on there, and let's just start talking about all the different tutorials we want to see, because I'll be here every Saturday from 12 to 2:30 doing something cool and new. So let's remake this leaf real quick. It's going to be super fast. So as a recap, right, because you got to do things more than once if you want to learn something. We're going to mix 2 leaves together. We want a glossy leaf and a leaf that has light passing through it. So the first one we'll do is the leaf that has light passing through it. It's a diffuse material in Octane. So we're going to go to the transmission tab, and actually that's already set up for us. We just cranked this float texture up, and we set the color to green. Next thing we're going to want to do is go to duplicate that. We're going to want to go to the basic tab and set it to glossy. Set it to glossy, and we can crank the roughness just a little bit, right? And we will up the index a little bit as well. I got like 1.33 or something. And then you use a mix material to combine those. So you can go to material, mix material, and you guys will actually notice that I have like a little tab here of all the go-to Octane things that I use. And you can make this anything you want in Cinema, but I've set it to just like an Octane tab, so I can click these buttons and make new things down here. And actually the way you do that is pretty simple. You go to Window, and you'll go to Customize, and I believe there is a new palette thing here that you can pull, and you should be able to just click and drag this anywhere you want. And basically you drop it in there, it'll make a fresh tab, and then you can as you're going through here, you want to have sorry, I'm getting all mixed up here. You can grab anything you want, click and drag it, and put it into let's say we look something up with Shift C, and you just want like a bevel tool. You can click and drag that, and it'll be placed. You see that little white line? It'll be placed right up in there. And now you'll have the bevel tool, because you use it a lot, as a button right there. Okay. So let's throw our 2 leaves into our mix material. And then let's throw the mix material onto our tree. And then we should be in business. So let's wrap this scene up. Oh man. Okay, so Matthias actually has a good point. He says maybe add some plants growing in from the outside of the hole, and maybe some green stains on the wall from top down, like water flowed into the pool from above. That's really nice. It's a really, really, really good idea. Yeah, have some ivy hanging from like this concrete up here would be sweet. So that can certainly be done. I don't know if we're going to have time in the stream to do all that, but we'll try. So you guys can see like the light is being picked up here on this tree a bit better. We can go into the leaf with transmission and crank that a little further, and that'll kind of brighten up the leaves a bit more. Alright, so our rocks have turned black. That's because we just need to re-link those materials. Sometimes that happens. You can easily do that by just dragging and dropping the images onto these little image tabs here, and everything will be reloaded pretty easily. But yeah, sometimes that happens if it crashes, or if you close it without saving or something, or I honestly don't really know why it happens. It happens to me a lot. But yeah, I'm just relinking all of these guys. It's so hard to tell where all of these. Okay, there you go. Then we have displacement. And finally, roughness, I believe. Yeah. All right, and you can see the leaves are back and the rocks are back. All right. Continuing on here. Let's change the light a little bit. And let's see about adding some fog, because that certainly spices things up. So there's a lot of different ways to add fog in Cinema4D. One way is to select your Octane daylight system, and it's actually the little tab here. Go to medium and hit add fog, and you'll see it appear down here. And when you change the medium radius, it'll start to change how your fog, how the light and the fog work together. So that is, there's like a threshold here where the fog is so thick you can't see anything. Yeah, you can see how the fog is like blocking the sun here. That's pretty cool. But yeah, path tracing is going to be what you want for fog. Let's see. So absorption, yeah, set it to like just off-white, and then scattering is just a little bit darker than that. And I'm honestly just messing with these settings to see what works. Wow, that's thick. So that's one way, okay? You can uncheck that to go back to normal. And if we add an octane fog volume, this will start to crunch your system pretty intensely. But if you play it smart, you should be all right. So basically, the voxel size editor, let's crank that to 100, and you'll see how in the viewport, you basically get these like little sheets, right, to display what the fog is doing and looking like. If you set it to 5, it is, well, let's save because it might crash our system. If you set it to a really low number, you see how this is going to crank up really intensely? Yeah, if you set that to 1, you're going to explode. So don't do that. I'll set it to 100. Stretch it out. Bring it down. And let's make it taller. And now we have a layer of fog inside of our little tree dome. And in the viewport, it's gone completely black because if you go to medium and you go into this little window here, you have your absorption and your scattering. You're going to want to set your density down to like 1, and even 1 is intense. So try 0.1. And even 0.1 is intense. So let's bring the fog down into the room so we're all like, everyone's in here together, right? Let's crank the scattering phase because that'll allow the light to like filter in through the fog a bit more in a direct way. So as you crank that up, let's try taking the absorption up to like a white like that. Yep, so the absorption should be a little bit brighter than the scattering. And you can see how that's looking a little foggy. And if we crank the sunlight settings, let's go a power of 3. You can see how that kind of like starts to filter in. Then from here, let's tweak the volume. Let's go like 0.05 so it comes down a little bit. And it's very subtle. It's a very subtle thing. So I feel like that's as far as we'd want to go. So I'll uncheck that just so we can get back to dealing with our image. And we'll take the sunlight settings down to 2 again. Yeah, let's see if we can't get some ivy hanging down from the outside, or maybe just something like maybe we download some of those gravestones from Megascans and put them and line them, around this thing here. It could be interesting. Or we could do different plants and stuff. So let's try that since I already have some plants loaded up pretty quick. Let's get out of Octane camera view, come back here, and let's basically set the area where we want to grow the plants. So we'll do, let's go back into camera view and see, we basically need to go from this point here all the way around to this point there. So let's do like from here to there. We'll select this tube that has the geometry where we're going to be wanting to plant the plants on. So that's in our foundation, our ceiling. We'll go to the polygon mode and let's just select all of the whole top piece. Quick way to do that would be to select everything, Control A, go into our side view, and then deselect everything deselect everything except for the little top bit. Maybe hold Control and go to point mode and just get rid of all those points. So now we just have that top chunk of points selected. Hold Control again, and when you're holding Control and switching between these different modes, you're grabbing. It's basically saying, "Oh, I have all these polygons selected, but what if I want to select all those points?" Hold Control, select points, and then all those points will be selected. But let's go to polygon, holding Control, and if you hit U-P on the keyboard, that will break off those polygons into a new little piece of geometry. So you can see here how we broke off. Oh, sorry, hold on one sec. You guys can see here how we broke off just that little ring, because that's where we're going to want the plants to be growing on, is right here. So let's bring it back down to where it was, and we're going to use something called Octane Scatter, and it's going to scatter a certain thing across the surface of any geometry we want, and in this case it's going to be what we just made right here. So let's call this, we'll just call that soil, because that's where we're going to be growing our plants. Or we'll call it plant ring. And now if you don't have Octane, you can also do this with Cinema's cloner. So let's do it with that first, just to show you guys. Let's just make a cube. We'll bring it up, scale it down a little bit, and that'll just be like a placeholder for our plants. You guys will get an idea of how this works. So basically, you're going to want to clone this cube, right? So if you hold down Alt with the cube selected and go to MoGraph and hit cloner, that's going to clone our cube. And the Alt thing, by the way, when you hold Alt, that's just automatically putting this cube as a child of the cloner here. So you can see how the cloner, it's a linear cloner. And we're just going by 3, right? So your count is 3, we can set it to 5, and it's a linear cloner. You see the mode right here. We want to set it to object, which means we're going to clone across an object, and it's looking for an object right here. So all we'll do is grab our plant ring. I'll delete the bevel on that. We'll grab our plant ring, drag it into the object there. And you can see how they're distributed across, this area here. And if you crank up that number to like 200, you can see how it's distributed across that. And we go back into our camera view, and you can see if all of these were plants, that'd be pretty cool looking. Now, you can do a cool thing where, actually there's a little checkbox for enable scaling. That's fun. I guess it scales them all proportionally. But if you want to mix things up a little bit, and make things a bit more random, you can do something pretty cool. Select your cloner, go to MoGraph Effector, and make a random effector. Where is it? There it is. And that randomly moves around all of these objects you have in your cloner. And by default, it has the position affected by 50 centimeters across the X, Y, and Z. So we can uncheck that because they're already randomized. But the thing I'm seeing is like rotation and scale. So what if you want your plants to be a little bit bigger, but some of them also smaller? Check scale, and now you have options. You can scale it by 2, right? So some of them scale up by 2, some of them scale down by 2. You can do the same across all these different, your X, Y, and Z coordinates. And that's actually a cool way to get you some really cool like greeble textures there. Let's go back and see what we're doing. If you want to scale it uniformly, which let's say you have a model of a plant and you don't want to stretch it in a way that seems abnormal, you can hit uniform scale. And uniform scale will just scale everything up or down uniformly, right? So you can have some plants that are a little bit bigger, some plants that are a little bit smaller, right? Absolute scale, what does that do? Absolute scale, I believe, scales things up only. If you have absolute scale unchecked, it'll scale things down. So I like that. And then lastly, rotation. We'll check rotation, and this one I love because, it affects rotation, and it just has a really cool look to it. Some plants might be going that way, some plants might be going that way, and some plants are spun all around like that. And that'll really give you a natural look when you drop plants in there as opposed to a cube. So let me drop some plants in here and see what happens. A castor oil plant. We have dry grass. We have dry plants. Paspalum. These are all words I have no idea. I don't know plant names here. Let's try that and see what we have. Okay, so these plants are models. I'm going to need to grab these really quick. Also from Megascans. So if you just type in plant, you get, you know, a whole bunch of different plants you can use. And that's what I'm sourcing from for this. Let's see. Okay. 2 seconds while I pull these plants up. Oh, snap. We got ivy? We got creeper ivy? Yes. What does that look like? Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so I got some cool ivy stuff here. So basically we will drag this down and you have, look at this, right? So this doesn't mean anything. This is just a bunch of polygons, right? But let's build this out real quick. We'll throw that down. We will render our scene, right? That looks like a bunch of nothing. And let's just start dragging those pictures onto here, and you'll see how quickly this will transform. This is going to be awesome. So let's see. Okay, so here is our color image, and we also have an opacity image, and the opacity is really what's going to make this. See, that looks awesome. There it is. See how the opacity totally makes this? It's just chipping away at the bits that aren't the leaf, right? And keeping just the leaf. So let's do our normal, our roughness, and our bump here. So we have our roughness that goes there into the roughness tab. We have our normal, which gives us a bit more detail in the leaf. And then we have our bump, which gives us also more detail in the leaf. Okay, so we have that. Let's actually make this thing a bit shinier. Okay. And let's, now that we have our material set up, we can actually start dragging and dropping different versions here of these leaves, because the pack comes with like 12 different versions. Same texture works for each one of these. And we can do like one more, maybe two more, which will give us a bit of randomness to all of this. Yep. So just applying the same material. And you can see how you get like a lot of cool variation here. Let's go one last one. Great. Sweet. Okay, so I think all of these need to be flipped around like that. And we'll go through each one of these, and it looks like the anchor point is set pretty normally. So let's copy all of these into our scene. And this will actually be spread across, instead of the top like we originally planned, they're going to be spread across the wall. So let's go back to our ceiling and let's just select like this little bit here, and we'll hit UP again, and that will be the bit we copy all of these plants across. So we'll re-update. We'll call this ivy ring, and we'll go to our cloner, and instead of the plant ring, we are going to drag the ivy ring, and you can see how that automatically updates. This is like my favorite part. I love scattering things and randomizing their position. Everyone following along? We're almost done here. Oh, Scott, what's up, dude? Hey, man, thanks for joining. Scott is an old friend of mine. It's actually how I got my name pwnisher, is because we all had this like wrestling company after high school where we would get together and just wrestle, and it's how I got a scar on my eye. It's because Scott actually had me in a headlock, and he let go, and I flew into the corner of a door, like bounced off the door. So we went hard, definitely, and everyone had their names. We were all really into pure ownage at the time, so everyone's name had the word pwn in it, and I think Scott was the Grandmaster Pwn, and I was the pwnisher, so welcome, dude. I think you've been, the Marines or the Army since? And that's been his thing. But, dude, I really appreciate you coming down and checking this thing out. It's super nerdy. Just nerding out on Cinema4D here. So let's replace these cubes with the plants instead. So all you have to do is, instead of the cube in the cloner, you just need to drag these plants into the cloner, and they should update. Let's just delete the cubes, and already it's not looking good. So how do we fix this? Let's turn off the randomizer and just see what we're cloning here. I'm going to take the ivy ring and scale it down, because maybe... Okay, let's hide the ivy ring. And there we go. I think now we're getting something. So I hid the ivy ring from the renderer by hitting these little buttons right here. There's these two buttons. And what you can do is either you can click the first time you click one of these buttons, that means it's going to be visible in your renderer, or visible to you. And then the second time you click it, it's going to turn red and say, I don't want to see it. Now there's two buttons. The first one is for viewport and the second one is for renderer. So if I did the first one, it's green, it's going to stay the same. If I hit it red, it's going to go away and disappear from my viewport, which I'm actually cool with. And you want to do the same in the renderer. That's one way of doing it. You can also right click and set it, give it an Octane object tag ID, and go to visibility and say camera visible, and it'll also be turned off that way as well. But it looks like when you turn it back on with the ID, you still get the shadows, so you might want to say shadow visibility off as well. Okay, so They look a little small, so I think what we can do is scale them up. If you select all of them in here, hit T and scale. Yep, it looks like they're scaling properly. That's nice. We want them to be connected to the wall, so let's go to the ivy ring and scale it up until they're just touching the wall. Like that is nice. And then let's go to our randomizer. Let's turn it on and go to the rotation and uncheck the rotation. The scale is fine. It's scaling things up and down. I think that's okay. Let's set it to 0.25 instead of 5. And for the rotation, let's zero out all these things. And you only want to rotate on the Z axis, I believe. Yeah, so they can be swiveling left and right by like 5 degrees or something. Nothing too crazy. Let's go back to the camera view. And it's looking like we're getting some weird stuff on the right and left side. What is that? Yeah, what is going on there? Oh, we need to turn off the ivy ring in the renderer. Okay, so that looks normal. They look a little small and patchy. We need a lot more. So let's select the ivy. Let's scale the ivy up like this. Ooh, and that's like dripping down. I like that. That is awesome. Okay, and then if you want to move the position of these things, you can use the ivy ring like that. Let's rotate it a little bit. That is super cool. Let's add a lot more. So basically what you're going to want to do, scaling it down it does what we need it to do. You might want to hand place some of them, so that they're kind of like drooping over the edge as opposed to just hanging like that. But I do like, this kind of movement here, where they're dripping down in the foreground. So let's actually scale up the ivy ring, the thing that the ivy is being scattered across. We're going to scale up that geometry just on the y-axis, so it's getting taller. So that's going to push the ivy up a bit, right? And if you go to the cloner, you can add a lot more. So instead of 200, let's go 300. And I think you just need to kind of like push and pull some of these a little bit, because you would want like a top piece that is totally connected to the top. Like, it wouldn't make sense for ivy to be just hanging like this without having been like drooped over the side. So you know what? I'm kind of feeling like it'd be cool to change out the ground for an actual forest floor. I think that could be awesome. And honestly, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff you could do here. We could probably change out this tree for a tree with like pink leaves or something, like a cherry blossom tree, to get more contrast here, because the ivy is kind of bleeding into the tree and the tree's bleeding into the ivy. So we could switch out the tree for something a bit brighter. Let's try let's go to our tree library. Yeah, like, what is this one? It looks pink here in the viewport, but it's not showing up. Oh, there we go. That is awesome. Leaves. We can maybe change the leaf color. Let's try and do that. I think we can just go in here, select both of these leaves. If you have them both selected, they both have diffuse tabs, so you can probably throw in a RGB, or no, color correction. Let's see, yeah, color correction. And go into that and change the hue. And that should start shifting the colors around. And the gamma can go, or we can take the brightness up to like 2. Saturation, what if the saturation goes to 0? The brightness goes, or the gamma goes to like 0.5. And you have like a white, you have white leaves here. It's actually pretty cool. Let's make them pink. So let's take the saturation to like 0.5 or something. You just gotta get the hue right. So I'm looking down here. Okay, there we go. There's a red leaf. We'll take the saturation to 0.5. And the gamma to like 0.5 as well. And that'll start to get us kind of a pink leaf. 0.35. And we can change out the background for, let's see, maybe something more overcast. Or a night scene like this. Oh, that's weird. Whoa, that's pretty crazy. Interesting, interesting. I really appreciate you guys stopping by. And I'm glad that you guys are learning stuff from this. It's really cool. So I'm just trying to get the lighting right. And I can mess with this for so long. But that's looking pretty good. If we want to fix this top row, we can make another strip of polygons here across the top and do another round of cloners that just deals with the top ring. So let's try that real quick. So we'll select our ivy ring. Let's check it out in viewport. Let's hold control and scale it up. We can hit T to scale it down, and we'll line it up just so that it's just on the little top piece. Let's crunch it down even more. So these the ivy has no choice but to spawn really just right there on the top. We will, let's see. So that's our top ring. We'll call it top ring. Let's duplicate our cloner. First, let's turn it off before we duplicate it, because we don't want to get too crazy. Let's control drag it. We'll rename these to Ivy Cloner, and then we'll call this Top Ivy Cloner. And we'll tell the Top Ivy Cloner to reference top ring here. And let's turn it on and see what we got. And there you go. You can see how the ivy is coming from the top and drooping down. That's what we want. And then now when we turn on our other ivy cloner, you can really see that stuff droop down like that. I think it's awesome. Really good idea. I forget who it was, but thank you. That was an awesome idea. Oh, what's up, Eli? What's up, Eli? Trying to learn some C4D? Eli's another really good friend of mine. If it wasn't for Eli, I probably would have no muscle mass on my body. So Eli taught me how to do that. He also works with Black Rifle Coffee guys, and yeah, just all around good dude. He joined the army because he wanted to be like Solid Snake. I've been there. Yeah, never joined the army, but I've had that feeling for sure. It's one of my favorite games ever. All right, this is pretty sweet. Like, you know, we could keep going. We could put lights in the water. We could do a lot of cool stuff. But at this point, we're at 2.5 hours. I got to take Gilbert to the vet. So I'm going to keep working on this during this week. I'll post it. You'll see it on my Instagram. Follow me at _pwnisher_ on Instagram if you want to see this image taken to the max. Let's see. Join the Discord server. It's in the description of this video. You guys can talk about anything CG. We can leave any comments or recommendations on what tutorials we want to do next. And I would really, really, really like to release an asset pack for you guys so that we can, we can learn how to make an asset pack together. But in the meantime, if you guys want to help support me, I do have a website where I have all my photography from around the world. Been to Ireland, Japan, Shanghai, Taiwan, Indonesia, all around California. A lot of it is film photography and digital photography. I got the store up. Try to get the prices as low as I can for you guys. The prints are high quality archival prints. They never fade. They look really, really nice. I got cool photos from all around the world. So if you guys are feeling helpful, then this is a good place to go to, and we can help support each other and whatnot. So until next time, guys, thank you so much. Don't forget, also, there's the playlist for the ambient Spotify playlist in the description for this video. But yeah, let's keep going. Let's make an awesome Zen garden scene. I hope to see your guys'. Tag me on Instagram. Again, that's _pwnisher_. And yeah, keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.